Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Making Sales Social Live, brought to you by Social Sales Link. I'm Bob Woods, and I'm joined by fellow LinkedIn and social selling professional, Bryn Tillman. How's things going, Bryn?
Everything's going great except for my camera. So we have a little bit of a different view today, which is okay with me, especially for the podcast listeners later.
Yeah, exactly. And the people listening later don't even know, which is cool. So let's talk about connections on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah, as we all know, it's important to have first degree connections on LinkedIn, but ideally, and as a salesperson, you may not want to connect with just anyone. So the era of collecting LinkedIn connections, say that 3 times fast, like some people collect baseball cards, has been over for quite a while now. And that's a good thing, right, Bryn?
Well, yeah, and we say it's been over, but so many people are still doing it.
I know.
So we really need to kind of fix the way we look at our connections. In fact, I just got off a coaching call with someone who had an enormous amount of shared connections with his ideal prospect, but he didn't know any of them, hadn't engaged, just connected with people at scale. And it really was not that productive. He's actually a Lion, a LinkedIn open networker, which we're changing. But this is, if you ever see, some people even say Lion on their headline or in their profile, and they're
Still.
proud of this, right? And this means they'll connect with anyone. Bob, you are so right that this should not be happening anymore. But it still is. And what happens is it dilutes your credibility, it dilutes your connection with your connections, and you're not able to leverage them the same way. A lot of people think, the more connections you have, the better off it is. But the more relationships you have, the better off it is, the more rapport building. So let's talk about the 3 kinds of connectors, Bob. Start with the
Right.
LinkedIn open networker. I'll connect with anyone. What's the middle one?
So the next one is, well, excuse me. So it's probably better to take the extremes and then do the one that we are, I think. So the next one would be purist.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
this is the exact opposite of the Lion. This is the person who says, I will only connect with people who I know, who I've
Mhm.
personally met, although personally nowadays is probably a little bit different with
Or
than when
engaged
we used
with.
to talk about this stuff. Yeah, who I've engaged with. These are only people who
Mhm.
I know, which is also not a good thing because it's really difficult to grow a network when you're only connecting with people who you have somehow had a connection with, essentially.
Yeah, so this purist, so let's like a Lion, LinkedIn open networker, you're walking into a networking meeting, you've got a whole handful of business cards and you walk around handing yours out and collecting theirs. Then you go back and you put a big rubber band around them and stick them in the corner of your desk, right? That's a LinkedIn open networker. So you collected connections, but you haven't had any meaningful conversation, let alone have it convert to anything. The purist is I walk into a networking meeting,
Mm.
I make a beeline for Bob Woods. We talk the whole time because we know each other. And I don't really want to engage with anyone else because I don't know them. Right. So that's a challenge. That is not networking. Right. That's the purest view. If I haven't met you, in some cases, if I haven't, gone kneecap to kneecap, eyeball to eyeball, I'm not connecting with you. But that's not productive either. What is productive when it comes to connections and connection requests?
The one word that we've been using quite a bit already, and that's the networker. So someone who actually networks, who
Mhm.
wants to go out and meet people, who wants to connect with people, but just won't connect with anyone. They are connecting with the right people, the people who can help them, as well as,
Mhm.
just as importantly, and probably more importantly, the people who we can help, because it should be about us giving first. Givers gain, like they used to say, and I'm guessing probably still say in BNI circles, but it's so very true. Give, 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 and that is what networking is all about.
Yeah, so we get these inbound connection requests and we're taking a look at them and we're saying, "Hey, is this someone that I could be of value to or could be of value in my network?" And I say, "Yes." That's great. And then we connect with them, we accept their connection request, but we want to start a conversation or they're going to fall into the business cards with the rubber band in the closed drawer. So we want to start a conversation in this case, right? And there are lots of different ways to approach this. But ultimately, what we want to do is get a back and forth.
Mhm.
So we might look at their profile and say, "Hey, I noticed you went to um, Wake Forest. Do you know Joe?" No, don't do that. That
Right.
don't make it that silly. But find something in common, start a conversation around that. Find content that they've shared and engage on that, and then find and share additional content by the author. Find out, go down into their influencers and see who they're following, and then go into listennotes.com and find a podcast and say, "Hey, notice you followed Brene Brown. I really love her stuff. Recently came across," if you didn't listen to it, you have to be honest, "came across a podcast on Brene Brown. I'm putting it in my queue, but I thought you might get some value from it. Let me know if you're interested. I'm happy to send that link." Now there's a conversation going. They have to say, "Yes, please send that link." We've got, "Okay, great. Who else do you follow? Is there anything you recommend?" Have a little bit of a conversation. At one point, you could say, "Hey, I'm not sure if you're exploring this kind of content, but my company just posted a blog post on this, or we did a video on this," and make sure it's educational, not pitch, right? And you can
Mhm.
work your way into that. But that's how the networker, we choose to connect with someone that, to your point, we can either help or we could be of value to or are valuable in our world. And we start sharing value and resources to really stand out. And so I think that's really important. I do want to talk about, and I don't want to jump ahead, so you keep me honest, Bob, but I want to talk about the three: we can accept, ignore, or send a message. Are we ready to
Oh,
talk about
yeah.
that?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so when you get to your inbound connections, right, you go to the My Network tab, and you'll see lots of invitations for pages, for newsletters, and one of them is, if you go to your see all, you're going to see people, right? So who is outstanding, and we're making a decision. So we may say yes, and we connect and send a welcome message if we know for sure. We may say absolutely no. It's someone from Australia with 3 connections, and I'm in New York. How did I get to be their fourth? Right? Like sometimes you're going to
Yeah.
get, and you might go, this is definitely a spam. Something's up. And usually when they have 0 or 1 connections, it's not a good connection. I don't typically completely ignore people, but if they fall under that, I do. The third is you can reply. Now, if they put in a note that it'll say reply to James, reply to Bob, reply to Anne, easy peasy. And that's on mobile or desktop. If they did not include a note, although I hear it's coming,
So
on
right.
Yeah, I looked. I don't have it, but I think Kevin has it. Kevin Turner, I think, has it. Is that who posted?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it was Kevin.
Yeah. So I think it's coming, but right now, only on desktop for me, you have to go in and click the message to reply.
Yep.
We're hoping the rumor is that at least it's in beta that you can send a reply message to connection request from mobile. So hopefully that's coming. But I'll send a message. I'll say, James, thanks so much for your connection request. Typically only connect with people I've engaged with. May I ask how you found me? And James may say, oh, I saw your post, or I was talking to Bob Woods and he mentioned you. But if I'm on the fence and I don't know who James is and I don't see a connection, I won't ignore him because you just don't know. But you don't have to accept them every single time.
Right. Yeah. So that was the point I was going to make, is that just because in that third scenario that we're talking about, just because you reply, it doesn't mean that you're accepting. You're just replying to ask a question, basically, just like Bryn said. So I think that that's an important distinction, that you can communicate with these people if you choose to, without
Having
having
to
to
accept.
take that. Yeah, without having to accept.
Yeah, and I think that's a big deal. And I will also hit ignore. And then some folks will say to me, um, well, what happens, if you ignore them, they're gone. Well, if you sent them a message, they're actually in your messaging box.
Mhm.
So you can always go back there and connect with them if you choose to.
Mhm. Yeah, so Harry just said that, of course you don't have to accept everyone, it's your choice, which is absolutely true. We were just talking about more of the functionality that LinkedIn has behind it, that you can
Exactly.
reply without accepting. But you're absolutely right. You don't have to accept
And
everyone.
we
It
don't think
is
you
your
should
choice.
accept
And
everyone.
yeah. So with that, excuse me, let's get in really quick to just a couple of groups of people who we do want to connect with. So I'm just going to list them out really quick, and then where we're going to talk about them a little bit more: prospects, clients, networking, referral partners, and I'm going to toss another one in there, just anyone who we can genuinely help, and then maybe get a referral from in the future, but that's not predicated on helping them out.
I'm going to throw one in.
Yeah.
Community leaders, heads of chambers of commerce or associations, or
Yep.
people that are influencers and highly connected.
Mhm.
And wait, let's do another one. Influencers, literally influencers,
Influencers, yeah, that's another good
right,
one,
that
yeah.
are attracting your prospects. Because those are folks that we would like to be connected to as
Yeah,
well.
actually, if you think about it, people like heads of chambers of commerce and people like that, those are actually influencers in their own right, I would say.
Micro influencers, at least, in a
Yeah,
minimum. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Good point. Good point. Yeah. So
yeah.
what do we do? Let's go through the list. How do we connect? What was the first one you said? Prospects?
Prospect.
So how would you connect with a prospect in a way that's meaningful to them without it being salesy?
Yeah, you just reach out, with a prospect, you should probably ideally be connecting with them because of something that they've said in a comment to someone else, because at that point you kind of know what they're feeling about a certain topic, and hopefully you agree with them, and then when you reach out to them you can offer a little bit of value added content as well, that's hopefully related to whatever it was that you were talking about in the first place.
Absolutely. And it really comes back to bringing value, value, value. So
Yep.
this is a wonderful question. What if we don't know each other, don't even have mutual connections, but we work in the same field of expertise? I'm picky in accepting invitations from people with fields similar to
Similar to
mine,
mine,
even
yeah.
when I don't know them. So this is a great
Mhm.
question. I'm going to start and then I'll hand the baton to you, Bob. But the bottom line, you look at so I'm going to go with our philosophy, which is high tide rises all boats. So I will connect with lots of people in the same industry. We've been referred and we've referred out to people that we've overlapped, but there are things they do that we don't do and vice versa all the time. So we tend to have a very open perspective on who to connect with. But if we are going to connect with them, we need to have a conversation. We can't just connect and forget. So if they're reaching out to you and they're like, hey, let's connect, and you're like, I don't know yet, like I'm on the fence, you can reply. And that's what we talked about right now. If you go into the desktop, even if they don't have a note, you could go into the My Network tab, see all, and message them and say, thanks so much for your outreach. I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and your business and explore if there's an opportunity for us to benefit one another. Please let me know your preferred way of chatting. If it happens to be via calendar link, here's mine. Now, obviously, you're not going to do this with everyone, but if you have someone that you're on the fence with, have a conversation with them. Sometimes they could be the best connection ever. I'm going to give you an example, and I don't know, I feel like I use Gunnar as an example all the time. So Gunnar Hood is someone that works closely with us, started out really as a competitor. One of our members, Stephen Farber, said, I mean, I knew Gunnar from Clubhouse, but he's like, he'd be great working with you. You would love him. I spent some time. He's amazing. And I'm like, I like him a lot, but he's a competitor. Why am I going to invest my time in talking to him? Really? I thought this.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's like, he's coaching for us. We're his client from a marketing perspective that we're launching shortly. Like there's so many really powerful things that came from connecting with a competitor, right? And our business will be transformed because of it. So I don't want you guys to think small. Think big, right?
Yeah.
It's a big world, and I really think in encompassing. Now, if you don't want to connect with them because you're afraid they're going to mine your connections, which, by the way, they're not going to. If they can steal your business because they know you're connected to someone, you need a little bit more service training. But generally, you can reply with a message and schedule a call and have the conversation before you accept the invite. Lots of
Absolutely.
things there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really powerful too. So I mean, for me to answer that question, it's like you don't know what you don't know. So I mean, you can look at someone, and I mean, just like Bryn did with Gunnar, she had no idea truly that something like what we have now would have blossom just based on that first look that she had with him.
Yeah,
And even though,
right.
she did kind of know him, liked him and everything else, what she thought then versus what we have now are two completely different things. So take that mentality in when you find yourself in this situation. It never hurts to have a conversation. And with the conversation, if it does come out that it doesn't make sense to connect and collaborate or whatever, then don't. It's
Fine.
that simple.
Yeah. And, and this isn't with everyone. I'm not saying have a conversation with every single person. But if you're on the fence and you're on the fence because you think there could be an opportunity, have that conversation.
Yeah.
Really important. I mean,
Have the conversation. Have the conversation.
yeah. Yeah. Maybe, I mean, I've heard conversations or one in particular, we were chatting with someone who felt very similar, and it ended up to be a small merger of companies, which benefited everyone. So
Yeah.
that was a while ago, but it was a digital marketing agency and a HubSpot shop. And one just did HubSpot and the other one didn't. And then they decided to come together, and it's a pretty big company now.
Mhm.
So, there's lots of opportunities. Keep the door open for networking.
Absolutely.
So I think, did we
I
complete
think
our agenda?
I think we're exhausted. We're absolutely exhausted. Yeah,
Oh,
no.
no. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
it's
no.
funny, this energizes me. I come
Okay.
off of these lives,
Yeah,
I'm not
no,
tired.
I agree.
My
Yeah, no, not
grandbabies
at all.
exhaust me. I'm definitely I'm definitely an extrovert, so,
Yeah,
it's like, this feeds me. I can't wait for
yeah,
to
this
be
is great.
live. I don't get exhausted from that. It's
Yeah, no,
interesting.
not at all. I was very much joking, but believe me. So, but we are going to go ahead and wrap things up. So, thanks again for joining us on Making Sales Social Live. If you're with us live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter right now, we do this every week. So keep an eye out for our live sessions. If you're listening to us on our podcast, which means that we're recorded, and you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and hit that subscribe or follow button so you'll be alerted when new shows pop up. If you'd like more info on our podcast, go to socialsaleslink.com/podcast. Again, that's socialsaleslink.com/podcast. So we do 2 shows weekly. We go live once a week, and then we also have our Making Sales Social interview series where we talk with people from all walks of business life, including sales and marketing and many more areas. So when you're out and about this week, be sure to make your sales.
Social. Bye,
Thank
guys.
you, everyone. Have a great week. Bye bye.